So I'm filming today's video on the 26th of October 2023. Now, according to my old band scrapbook, on the 26th of October 1983, a mere 40 years ago, I did my first ever live gig. So I thought I would celebrate momentous occasion by making a little video with some thoughts on what it's like to be in a band, maybe some advice at the end, and I will focus on the one thing that I think has been most important in all the years that I've played in bands. Hope you enjoy the video. So I guess this all goes back to 5 young heavy metal guys at the same school way back in the early 80s, probably 1982. Dougie, Deck, Laffy, Rab, me, form a band. Call ourselves Chikara. We rehearse in the Scout Hall. Like a lot of bands, you rehearse in your local Scout Hall, and I guess like a lot of bands, it's just when you first start out, it's just school friends forming a band. I don't think we had any great thoughts of being famous or anything like that. So we do our first gig 26th of October 1983 in a local venue, and I remember us being very, very nervous. You know, we'd rehearsed for about 6 months for the big night. From recollection, we would have started with We Belong to the Night, and we did the first song that we ever wrote together. We wrote a song called Bad Connections. It's of its time. It was written by Deck, and it probably highlights the level of expertise in guitar playing and heavy metal that we had. And the main riff went like this. Now we did that for about 5 minutes. That was the entire song. That was the verse, the bridge and the chorus, just that riff. So that was the very first song we ever wrote. Now most people will know that once you write your first song, you think, okay, the next one we write after that has to be better. So we kept going up and up. Well, we certainly thought we were going up and up in terms of writing better songs. And the first one I remember that I thought was half decent was a song called Don't Blame It on Susie. Now, we went into a studio. This was the first time I'd ever been in a studio to record our first 3-song demo. Now, by this point, we were down to a 3-piece. Like a lot of bands, when you're sort of getting to the stage of doing your first demo, you know, people leave the band, people end up getting asked to leave the band. You know, I've often said to my wife, it's probably easier to get a divorce than it is to split up with people in a band. You know, it's difficult. The fragile egos and everything like that, you know, it's very tricky. It wouldn't be the first time I've been in a band and then we decided to like chuck somebody out, but rather than chuck them out, we would just say we were going to split the band up, and then like 3 or 4 days later we would start a new band with a different name, with the same lineup apart from the person that we didn't want in the band. That's what happens. So Don't Blame On Susie, this is the first one I remember that I thought, that's got a half decent guitar riff. So that was Chikara, then we changed to Suicide Solution, and by the time we did the demo, as you saw there, we were called Arizona, and we were just a 3-piece. And we didn't have any big ambitions. All our gigs at that point in time for the first 3 or 4 years were all just in the local area, you know. We grew up in a small place, and I think the fact that we were doing gigs, people were thinking, Dunsy and his friends are doing pretty well, you know, they're doing gigs in a town maybe 10 miles away. We had a few lineup changes through the years, but we tended to stick to like melodic rock. That was our thing. We were a melodic rock band. I don't think we had much ambition other than just playing a few sort of local gigs. And then in 1989, now this is the first time that luck, fortuitous happenings took place. So in 1989, I went to audition with a band called The Exploited, a legendary Scottish hardcore punk band. I made a whole video on my audition for The Exploited up there. Now, as it happens, I did not take the job in The Exploited, again, for various reasons I explained in the video. But one thing that happened, one thing that changed the rest of my music career was I got on really well with the drummer. So, went back to Arizona, and after 3 or 4 months, we could all see this was, you know, it was coming to the end, you know. Everything has a shelf life, and we were thinking, we've probably gone as far as we can. None of us have any great ambitions, just happy doing a few gigs. So we just called it a day. And then I get a phone call from the drummer who I met at the Exploited audition, and he says, I've joined a band, they're looking for another guitar player, a guy who does some rock, are you up for that? So then I joined Look Good in Rags. Look Good in Rags were a kind of up-tempo, punky pop rock band, and it was great, really good. Now, I took my guitar playing to Look Good in Rags, my 100 mile an hour sort of Chuck Berry rock and roll. Here's a solo from one of the 3 demo tracks that we recorded. Very fast, punky rock and roll. Look Good in Rags, I guess a bit like Arizona before them. We didn't seem to have any great ambitions. I think the biggest thing we did was we supported the legendary Rathchild. And I think when I joined Look Good in Rags, that was also the first time that I was kind of going outside my circle of school friends and stuff like that. You know, I was meeting other people from different sort of scenes, different influences. We didn't really do that much. Maybe after about a year and a half, I think we all sort of saw the writing on the wall. It was like, you know, we've taken this as far as we can. So that was the first bit of luck. The Exploited audition, getting on well with the drummer, he gets me in the next band. So fast forward about 6 months after that, the same drummer phones me and says, I've now joined a band with a couple of guys who were in the Catalan. Now the Catalan had done really well. They had 3 albums out, tons and tons of great reviews in the music press. They had toured with Nirvana, Tad, Mudhoney, so they were major league compared to all the stuff I was doing. But they had split up, and Kai and Murdo decided to form a new band called the Joyriders. So I went along to a jam, and within about 3 songs, me, Kai, Murdo and Rick thought, this sounds really good. You know, we were kind of indie, but I was doing a bit of rock guitar, and it sounded great, it sounded really good. And this was like a big step up for me, joining a band with people, you know, who had done a lot more than me, who'd done loads of gigs with loads of sort of famous bands and had records out as well. So after about 3 months of being in the Joyriders, Kai leaves the band, Craig comes in on bass, and we head into the recording studio. The King of Gasoline EP, which came out on Avalanche Records. Now that ended up becoming an NME single of the week, which I think, luck again, I think the luck was that because the Catalan had done so well, that once Murdo and Kai formed a new band, you know, the press were aware of who they were. And I guess if people aren't aware of who you are, you could be the best band in the world, but you're never going to get anywhere. People have to know who you are. So we were dead lucky in that respect. I was dead lucky in that respect that I joined a band with people who had, you know, been there, seen it, done it in terms of putting records out and stuff like that. So that was an NME single of the week, and we started doing gigs. I've got a list of the bands that I played with that I made here. So in no particular order. In the early 90s, probably 91 to about 93, 94, we played gigs with Sweardriver, Mercury Rev, Bleach, Die Cheerleader, Nirvana, Mudhoney, the Lemonheads. I'll come back to the Lemonheads. Kinky Machine, Leatherface, Ned's Atomic Dustbin, The Revs, Captain America, Mega City 4. Now when I joined the Joyriders, my guitar playing style changed completely. They opened my eyes, or opened my ears to bands like Husker Du, Dinosaur Jr. Up until then I'd been doing a lot of sort of bar chords, power chords. And then the first Sugar album came out, and when I heard that, I was like, that changed my guitar playing life 100%. The big chords that Bob Mould was doing, big open chords. He's one of the first songs that I wrote for the Joyriders with that kind of influence, big open chords. So yeah, it changed my guitar playing style completely. Again, it's just luck. I ended up in a band with people who let me hear different sorts of music. So we went back into the studio in 1993 to record our second EP, Don't Ask Me. So that was the second single. Crazily, that became an NME single of the week as well. But it just seemed to fizzle out. You know, the momentum, you could see the momentum was just going down. And after about 2 or 3 years, I thought, I don't think this is going to go any further. And there was internal band issues going on, as well as anyone who's ever been in a band will tell you. There's always internal band issues. So myself and Craig left, and then the band fizzled out about a year later or something like that. So that takes us up to about 95, 96 or something like that. So I thought, I'm just going to get back on the horse, you know, get back on my bike that I've fallen off, formed a new band. So I phoned my mate Andy and says, do you want to form a band? Maybe up-tempo, punky pop. So Andy and I formed Chickweed. And we recorded this. Double A-side, 7-inch single. This came out on Human Condition Records. Here's a brief clip.
Wanna be a film star, wanna be so rich, wanna own a condo, and tell the boss that he's a prick. Wanna be a superstar, wanna be a hero, wanna be a real sane babe, sure to know how that goes. I don't wanna be.
So after about a year of that lineup of Chickweed, we decided to up our game. Thought we need to get a bit better musically, so we got a new singer, Donna, who also played 12-string Rickenbacker guitar, and we recorded a second single. Now what I realise, now bizarrely, this became a Radio 1 single of the week, like a daytime Radio 1 single of the week. My mum phoned me and said, I'm sure I heard your band on the radio today. So I'd been doing the music thing for years, and my mum must have thought, oh, he's doing quite well, he's on the radio. So yes, this was a Radio 1 single of the week. Now, I would hasten to add that all this time, I still had the same day job. I've still got the same day job that I have now. Had it for 39 years. So, yes, that was like a Radio 1 single of the week. So that did quite well. We got loads of interest from A&R people. So we headed back into the studio to record a full album. We did an 8-track album. This was great. Spent a week in the studio doing this. So up until that point, I got my first Les Paul, I think 1985, 86. And I got a Marshall JCM 800. So all the way through the latter part of Arizona, through the Joyriders, even on the first Chickweed single, I was using a Les Paul and a Marshall, and then it just changed. I thought, I need to change what I'm doing here, I need to change up my sound. And I bought a AC30 and a Fender Twin, sold my Les Pauls, sold my Marshall, and I used a Strat. And I think on this album, I recorded about 90% of it on a Stratocaster, through an AC30 with a Boss DS1. Now this is mostly recorded with a capo. I think there's a capo on 6 of the 8 songs, and there was that kind of Bob Mouldy chord stuff going on as well. And I only did one lead, and it's not even a solo, I only did one lead on the whole album. Like I said, going back to the Joyriders thing, my guitar playing style had changed from my early days in my heavy metal band with my school friends. So we did that, did the album, up and down to London quite a lot. Now I think, to be fair, we let ourselves down in live performance. I don't think we were the most professional live outfit, so when A&R guys came to see us, every one of them passed. So we could tell after a couple of years, we thought, you know, this is just tailing off as well, the interest. Much like the Joyriders, much like Arizona, the interest was tailing off. An important thing here is that, as I said earlier, everything has a shelf life. You know, you can't keep flogging a dead horse. So we just called it a day with Chickweed. So fast forward to the early 2000s, Chickweed ended probably about 1999 or something like that. The early 2000s, I come out my front door of where I'm living, and I bump into one of my mates who I hadn't seen for a long time, Lauren, and he's just moved round the corner from me, and he says, are you still playing? Because I was doing kind of stuff with friends, out doing gigs, covers gigs, and doing demos and stuff like that, but not really going anywhere. And he said, my mate Spooks is forming a band, sort of Gothic rock. You fancy coming along for a jam? And I thought, yes, let's do that. So again, just bumped into a mate on the street who I hadn't seen in years, and I joined a band with him, and that band became Dead Eyes Opened. So that was maybe about 2007 or something like that. We did Dead Eyes Opened, and this was great. It was like the cult sort of Gothic rock. Here's the title track of the album, Tyrants. So again, I was bringing different influences to my guitar style, the cult sort of thing, with the open ringing strings and stuff like that, to work with the people that I was in a band with. But that's what you have to do. You can't just be blinkered and head down the one road and just keep doing the same thing all the time. I mean, you can, but I expect you don't get very far. You have to work with people. So that was Dead Eyes Open. And in 2009, so I'm still doing Dead Eyes Open. 2009, the strangest thing happened. Again, luck. I put up a Joyriders page on MySpace, and one day I opened my email and it says, "Hi Joyriders, we are a record label in Japan. Has anyone ever put out your early EPs? Anybody ever re-released them?" And I went back and says, no, I don't think there was any interest. Then an email came back, says, well, how about one, we do a compilation album of your early singles and BBC radio sessions and stuff, and two, you come to Japan to do a tour to promote it. You couldn't make that up. You couldn't make that up. So I phoned Murdo and Craig and said, we didn't have a band, still friends, didn't have a band. Phoned them and says, you're never going to believe this, but somebody wants to put an album out and they want us to go to Japan. And they were like, you're making this up, are you drinking? I was like, no, it's true, guys. So fast forward 6 months, we've got an album out, compilation of our early stuff, yeah. And we're in Japan playing gigs. We weren't playing the Budokan, we were playing sort of small venues, capacity of anywhere between like 100 and 200, was like small places, and there was loads of drives in between all these gigs. It was quite hard work, but it was great fun. Bearing in mind, I'm in my 40s at this point in time. And I thought, how on earth did this happen? So we came back from Japan, we recorded an album of new material, put that out on the same record label. And then we had the opportunity to do a couple of gigs. We played in the UK, we played with the New York Dolls. And then the final show that we did, we supported the Lemonheads, I think 2013 or something like that. And it was the 30th anniversary of them releasing It's a Shame About Ray. Now, we had played with the Lemonheads in London. When they released that album, we played 2 big gigs at the Kilburn National, and it was kind of bookending the Joyriders' career, and we thought, this is as good as it's going to get. We've been to Japan, so our final gig was like a big hometown show supporting the Lemonheads, so we called that day with the Joyriders after that. We're all still friends, but it was just, like I say, it was just time to call it a day. So I'm still in Dead Eyes Open at this point. But like other bands I've been in, we could kind of see it was tailing off, and we all just had a meeting and thought, we should just call it a day at that. And then I got a phone call from my other mate, Craig, who says, we're looking for a guitarist to join Twisted Nerve. Now, Twisted Nerve had been going since 1978. They split up in 1984, I think, but then reformed in 2005 because they were getting all these offers. They were like a Gothic post-punk band, getting all these offers to go and play festivals in Europe. So I joined them, and I've been doing that for the last 7 years. Been to America and everything. Only did 1 gig in America. So again, that's just luck. They were looking for a guitar player, and I was no longer in a band at that point in time. And I guess with Twisted Nerve, I've maybe changed my style a bit as well. I've not lost all my rock leanings, but I've certainly changed to to fit the music that I'm doing, which is what you have to do. As I said earlier, you have to blend in, you have to take influences in, and you have to make the band sound cohesive. There's no point in me stepping on stage with Twisted Nerve and ripping out an Yngwie Malmsteen solo, which, I couldn't do anyway. But there'd be no point in me doing that. The band has to be a cohesive unit. Now, about 7 years ago, I started a band with my mate Hud. This is like the full circle, who I've known since school, known Hud for 40 years. And we do classic rock covers, everything from AC/DC, Cheap Trick, Sensational Alex Harvey Band, The Cars even, stuff like that. So there you go, that's 40 years of what I've been up to doing gigs. So to finish the video, I'll give you some of my thoughts, maybe what I think is the most important thing, or the most important things when you're in a band, and finally, what I consider to be my greatest achievement of playing in bands for the last 40 years. Here's some of my thoughts. Personally, after about 3 or 4 years of playing guitar, I realised I was never going to be the greatest guitar player in the world. I think a lot of people, you watch people on YouTube teaching guitar, and everybody's trying to get you to get better and better and better. Now, I do understand that, but at some point, everybody reaches their technical ability, and I reached mine, and I thought, okay, this is as good as I'm going to get at guitar playing, but what I need to do is, I need to learn how to be in a band. Now, that's maybe hard to explain, but you need to learn how to be in a band, you need to learn how to deal with people in stressful situations. You need to learn compromise. When you're in a band, there's always pulling in different directions. Somebody's saying we should do this, somebody's saying we should do that. So you have to learn to deal with people, you have to learn compromise, you have to put a lot of time into rehearsals. A lot of your time is spent in a rehearsal room. 1 hour of that is spent on a stage. So there's a lot of work goes in to being in a band. So what do I consider to be maybe the most important thing when you're in a band to get further? I think it's luck. I genuinely think it's luck and good fortune. You know, you could be the greatest band in the world, you could write the greatest songs, you could be the greatest musician in the whole world, but without some luck, people are never going to hear about you. So I would say, you know, if you're in a band, just keep going, just keep enjoying it. The most important thing is to keep enjoying what you're doing. You know, the minute you stop enjoying it, it's a time to stop doing it. But you need luck. You need luck as well. I really do believe that. I genuinely do believe, you know, without going for that exploited audition, I would never have ended up going to Japan. And it was simply just luck. I went to an audition, got on well with somebody. Again, this is like working with people in bands. I got on well with somebody, and that led a progression to getting a bit higher up the rung. I mean, I've had the same job, like I say, same job for 40 years. I'm not a professional musician. So yes, luck. Now finally, I will end the video on what do I consider my greatest achievement. You know, people would say, oh, you've had, you know, a couple of NME singles of the week, you've played gigs with Nirvana. To me, the greatest thing I've ever done, in November 1993, the legendary Jane County came to do a UK tour, and at every gig she was just getting like a pickup band, and I was asked to be in the pickup band in Edinburgh. It was myself, Rick from the Joyriders and the Exploited and Look Good in Rags, and my mate Hideo on bass, and we got to be electric chairs for one evening only. We had a Friday night rehearsal, and then we did the gig on Saturday. I made a video about it, the link up there, and it was just the best. We got to hang out with Jane County, who was telling us stories about hanging out with the New York Dolls, the New York scene, Andy Warhol, the Ramones, Blondie and everything like that. It was like, I couldn't believe I was doing it, you know, and I've got video evidence of me being an electric chair. It was rock and roll. We did some Doll songs and stuff like that. So that is honestly what I consider to be my greatest achievement. Being in an electric chair for about 50 minutes one night in Edinburgh in 1993. As ever, folks, it's a privilege and a pleasure bringing you content on Dunsy's Guitar World. Cheers for now.